Brothers and sisters, we are blessed to be here. Our entire existence is a blessing, and so we are called to gratitude. A life of thankfulness is a life of recognition of where we came from and how everything that we have in this life is a blessing manifest from our divine creator, provider, and sustainer. And the single most greatest blessing of all is guidance. When we look in the world, all of the strife and corruption and falsehood and bloodshed and conflict, it's all because of moral corruption. People can't simply identify truth from falsehood, right from wrong. It's that simple. And so having that objective truth in the revelation, in the Quran, and the example of our beloved Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, is the greatest blessing. So we seek to exalt and glorify the perfection of God through living in a way that reflects our knowledge that we gain from revelation. The Prophet ﷺ used to begin any serious talk. He would conclude his introduction with 3 verses that center the concept of mindfulness, of a cautious mindset in how I live, what I say and what I do. Taqwa, to be pious, to be consciously concerned about living up to my responsibility to my Creator. And he says, اتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَقُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا. He gives a specific methodology, a formula, and speak with clear, truthful, factually, morally upright language. Make sure that what you say is built upon something you know for sure. What you say is something that is promoting good in the world or removing the evil of the world. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he taught us that we will all be in a struggle individually with the evil influences of this world and our selfish desires. And we will be dealing with social corruption. And we will be dealing with people who wish us non-existent. People who are aggressing and hostile to us. So this concept of jihad is how the multi-layered way to engage that, struggling and striving, embracing the discomfort required to overcome evil and falsehood and corruption and aggression and hostility. Then he defined what is the best expression of this struggle, of this jihad. أفضل الجهاد عند الله كلمة حق عند سلطان جائر. The best form of this struggle for truth and justice and in the pursuit of peace and freedom is to speak the truth in the face and in the threat of a corrupt tyrant, a system of rule that causes you harm. When we look at the world and we get to know people, most people are not power-hungry, hostile people. Most people just wish good for themselves, their families, and they generally care about people and wish well for others. Xenophobia, this hatred for people who are different or foreign, racism, and all forms of hatred, it's not natural to human beings. It must be learned. It must be learned. Xenophobia is something that you would have to be taught, oh, all of those are a danger. But where do we learn it from? Who teaches people this? The primary target audience of those who teach hate are insecure, weak people. People who are looking for something to make themselves feel better. They want to look for someone to blame for their problems. So those that are teaching racism and hatred, they find these people, these insecure, weak people who want to find someone to blame, and they educate them to be racist and hateful to others. It is the few dedicated, power-hungry people in the world who teach hate and division. And they do this to create workers for their cause. And they want to keep them busy from realizing that they too are oppressed by the one they serve. And on that note, on a large scale, I want to remind everybody here that the United States of America has definitely created a massive problem of hatred and division in the world. And that is because of one thing that was reminded by President Eisenhower after World War II, after he completed his term as President of the United States and he was leaving office. You can watch it on YouTube. President Eisenhower warned the American people that as your president, I feel like the line of needing a military to protect us from those who would threaten us has become blurred into creating a military empire. And he warned us that I see that the military-industrial complex, the whole sophisticated corporate system of making weapons and working with the military in order to use weapons or sell weapons or create or deal with conflict in the world, he said in his speech that I feel like it's influencing every aspect of our government. And since he said that, there is only one country in the world that has been the cause of and engaged in many wars all over the world, and that is the United States of America. And I'll bring it home with a very simple example that we should be very careful to understand. On the afternoon of September 11th, 2001, the president and all of his advisors were sitting in the White House, and the United States Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, issued rapid orders in the afternoon of September 11, 2001. Without any investigation having happened, he issued rapid orders that he says, I want the best evidence that will prove the Iraqi involvement in what just happened in New York City and in the Pentagon. I want the best info fast, he says. Judge whether it's good enough to hit Saddam Hussein at the same time, not just Osama bin Laden. So what you're seeing here, and you might say, well, is this some sort of conspiracy theory documentary? No, that's actually the United States Archives, the notes that were taken in the room by senior policy official Stephen Cambone. The United States takes actual notes of all of the crimes it commits in the world. It just is betting that its influence on mainstream media and your busyness with work and entertainment, you will never care to find out that you're part of a corrupt military war hawk empire. But we document it. So you see, Donald Rumsfeld in the afternoon had it set in his mind, number one, without any investigation at all into what just happened, that it was Osama bin Laden and that there should be proven a link to Iraq. Okay? Because that was their plan as the military-industrial complex, which he was the head of as the Secretary of Defense. He works with the Pentagon and the CIA and all of those people. That's where his office is. So Donald Rumsfeld was a lifetime war hawk. He used to be the Secretary of Defense for Gerald Ford before. He's an insider. So they knew what they were going to do. And they knew that it was going to create crimes against humanity. Were there any Afghani people or any Iraqi people who were on the list of 19 hijackers? Were there? Nope, not one. Was there any international criminal court investigation that proved that Osama bin Laden did this, and now it was then told based upon the legal process of law that now you people here in Afghanistan, the Taliban, must release him? That never happened. So the invasion of Afghanistan from the get-go was against international law. From the get-go. That's not an opinion. That's a fact, which is why they drew up the Hague Invasion Act. Raise your hand if you know what that is. Okay, this is where you're living in this country. So actually, the United States Congress passed a law. Are you ready for this? In August of 2002, that said, if any American military personnel or elected official is charged by the International Criminal Court of any crime, then the United States will go invade The Hague and the International Criminal Court and use all the means at their capacity to take back anyone who was charged with that crime. That's the Hague Invasion Act. And they just reaffirmed it for Netanyahu. You see what kind of imperial authoritarian fascism we live under? But they're betting that just like you didn't know, that that's a law in the United States, American legal federal law. It was never repealed, it's still there. And they piggyback that now to support Netanyahu. Why would you do that if you think you're the human rights and you're doing what's right and you're following all the rules? Was there ever any weapons of mass destruction found in Iraq? Was there any link to Osama bin Laden or 9/11 ever found in Iraq? But the whole country was destroyed anyway. Afghanistan was destroyed, parts of Pakistan were destroyed, Somalia was invaded, Yemen invaded, and they created this model. So Carl Bernstein, him and Bob Woodward, they're the famous Washington Post reporters that found out about Watergate. And they pursued it, and it became the end of Richard Nixon's presidency. So Carl Bernstein, we can guarantee, is a mainstream investigative journalist. He wrote a whole entire article about the CIA's involvement and its history of influencing public opinion in the United States to support its strategic interests in the military-industrial complex, because it's the intelligence wing of it. This includes giving official stories to all media outlets and journalists and telling them to push them. This is the story. That's your official story. This includes working with and working in the media outlets as journalists and reporters themselves. For MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, all of that, Washington Post, the New York Times. And get this, this also includes working in Hollywood, working with producers and directors and being an actor and telling them about scripts that will reflect how things really are and what need to be pictured and what's going on. And that's in the movies, and that's in the television shows. Homeland, that's their production. Many of these things, 24, all that stuff. This Islamophobia happened on our dime. So we are faced with this aggression on so many scales, and yet we're being made to feel like we're the problem. So Allah told us, in the context of you being pressured and some hostile forces coming against you, بَلَا إِن تَصْبِرُوا وَتَتَّقُوا لَا يَضُرُّكُمْ كَيْدُهُمْ شَيْئًا. If you are truly people of patience and perseverance, and you withstand whatever they're doing, and you stick with your message, and you speak the truth, and you live according to your divine revelation, then their plots will not harm you in any way. Meaning, if you're not patient, and you are not mindful of God, then you will be destroyed by their plots. This is مفهوم المخالفة. الذين قال لهم الناس إن الناس قد جمعوا لكم فاخشوهم وقالوا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل وزادهم إيمانا وقالوا حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل. So in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, some of the hypocrites of Medina were warning the believers. They said, your enemies, the Quraysh, have mobilized a big massive force. They're going to come destroy all of you. You better fear them. The believers' response to that was not like, oh no, we better hide. Maybe we can run away. No, their response was, they are strong in faith. This is part of the deal. And they said, God is sufficient for us, and He is the best for anyone as a protector. So this is the attitude that we need to develop, and we have to have the knowledge and the patience and the piety to respond to this constant aggression that has been going on against us, even though we are the massive victim. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فإنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. At the end of Surah Al Imran, it's the methodology. You're going to face hostility. You're going to face rejection. You're going to see that it's a difficult path to maintain prophethood, to maintain the divine order of things against your selfish desire and your tribal desires. You must become an advocate for collective perseverance, patience, and fortitude. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اصبروا وصابروا ورابطوا واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون. You must be patient. You must persevere. You must respond with a calculated wisdom and with maintaining your integrity to hostility. You must work together to struggle and strive against your enemy. And you must be mindful of God if you're going to succeed. So every year, around this time, we hear about Muslim children being discriminated against under the guise of 9/11 education and remembrance. I've come to know that the vast majority of kids do not tell their parents what they have heard in class and what was said in class. This is for a variety of reasons. I fear the worst of all reasons is that they believe that it's true. That they're being told in class that Islam and Muslims was the cause of this terrorist act, and that they're part of a Muslim family and they're told to follow Islam, which is it's probably a deeply depressing and saddening and internal struggle to deal with this. Because you're sending them to the place, you're like, we used to be in a place, so we came here so you get a good education. We're sending you to the place that has the official education. And then the official education that your parents are telling you as a kid to work so hard to get the best grades at, they're telling you Islam and Muslims did 9/11. So maybe they believe it's real. Maybe they think we're weak and we have no power. They're correct, but that does not mean in this country that you just sit and take it. You stand up, you speak the truth. You respond to oppression. You stand your ground. Maybe they feel their parents are cowards and they won't do anything anyways. I really hope that's not true. But at the end of the day, every single parent in this room should sit down with your children tonight and ask them in a loving, caring, kind way. Don't make them feel like there's any danger or problem or anything. Say, so on Wednesday, did anybody talk about 9/11? Have they talked about 9/11 before in your class? And then investigate. What was said? What words were used? How did they say it? What do you think everybody felt? How did you feel? What do you understand about this? That conversation is far overdue for many. The word Islam and Muslims should never be used if somebody feels that they need to be teaching about 9/11. For the simple fact that Islam had absolutely nothing to do with anything that happened on the day of 9/11. And therefore a Muslim, one who follows Islam, cannot be made to believe that they're somehow part of that or guilty for it. We must respond aggressively to Islamophobia. We must bring the threat of constitutional and legal battles. I'm telling you, the ACLU will stand with you. I'm telling you, we will put zakat money in your case, and we will create precedents that will change. You have to understand, other communities are like, how did they become so powerful? How did this group get all of that influence? Because they did what I'm telling you to do for their cause. We're not. So we're where we're at because we believe that we have no power. The country's saying, no, if you fight for power, you will gain it. If you stand up and mobilize yourselves. So what are the two indisputable facts that we must say? Obviously, the official 9/11 Commission report, we all know, the story is ridiculous and bonkers. But we don't have to get into any of that. We don't have to sound like a conspiracy theorist. There are two fundamental facts that we stick with in the face of this. Number one, Islam is completely opposed to someone killing a bunch of civilians who went to work because of some imagined connection between them and some crime against whatever. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and his companions were very adamant about that. The Prophet said, if someone kills a non-Muslim who is in a peace treaty with the Muslims, then that person will never smell the fragrance of paradise. The Prophet Muhammad said, if you kill the non-Muslim who you are not in the actual battlefield fighting, that's what he's saying, then you will not go to heaven for doing that. He said, if you harm him or make him go through difficulties, the Prophet said, I will be on that non-Muslim side on the Day of Judgment against you. أَنَا حَجِيجُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. This is both these hadith in Bukhari. The Quran is very clear about not killing people who are not attacking you and fighting you. And don't be the aggressors. We've been through all of this over and over. We know this. So Islam obviously has nothing to do with that. So you can't make Islam in any way, or a Muslim in any way, guilty for it. The Ku Klux Klan, pay close attention. It was a terrorist organization that regularly murdered and hung and strung and raped and tortured black people in this country for decades. And in the early 1900s, their membership was many millions, some say 4 or 5 million Americans. They were on city councils, sheriff, police departments, and guess what? They were devout Christians, the Presbyterian community. Many mainline Christian churches of today were originally deeply controlled and influenced by the Ku Klux Klan. They said that we are promoting biblical values, and it's our love for Christ and the Bible that we're protecting our society from this evil. That's how they justified it. That's why they burnt crosses in the yards. The fire of our religion is going to come against you if you don't get out of here. So now, if you go to history.com, Encyclopedia Britannica, Wikipedia, you name it, and look at what is the Ku Klux Klan, you will find no reference to Christianity or Christians. They are not called a Christian extremist group. They are not called radical Christian extremists. They are not called Christianists. You see the point? You see it clear? Islamist, radical Islamist, Muslim extremist, all those words are hypocrisy. They are racism. They are xenophobia. And Democrat and Republican have been promoting that stuff from day one. This is not a one-side enemy here. And so it's crucial for us to know these facts. It's crucial for us to respond with truth, with dignity, with strength, with knowledge, with clarity, with moral high ground. Because the second fact, there is no question that the biggest victim by far and wide of 9/11 was Muslims. A full-blown Holocaust has happened over the last 23 years, and it all goes back to, well, those are the terrorists. The invasion of Afghanistan, the invasion of Iraq, the destruction of whole entire countries, the invasion of other sovereign nations without any international laws, that all took place. When Assad destroyed his whole country, what was he saying? These are the terrorists, those are the extremists, these are the Islamists. He used the same language. That's part of it too, because he took the same language that the Bush administration invented. When you saw what happened with Myanmar and the Rohingya, what language did they use? Exact same language. India, right now, what has Modi been using the whole time? Sisi, his government, Saudi, UAE. How do they talk about things? Same, those are all terrorists. China, putting all these people in concentration camps. These are extremists. We have to fix their radicalized mindset. Millions of people were killed. Millions of people's lives were ruined because of this ideology that started with the United States military-industrial complex. If you want to talk about 9/11, either you don't talk about it at all, or you bring up all of this, facts. Because we've suffered it. We're still suffering it in Gaza. Just look it up on YouTube. Benjamin Netanyahu himself is on the record in video. We at Israel have benefited greatly from 9/11. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's a fact. That's what he said, and that's what they're doing. Because it was put in everybody's minds in massive brainwashing. Sihr alim. That we have to accept that because all of those are potential terrorists. They're saying it in very clear terms all over the place in Zionism. They're saying all of them are potential terrorists. Even though they're the terrorist state from day one. Just like the United States is a terrorist state and has been, as Noam Chomsky has written a whole library collection for you to read to find out about. The MIT professor. This is not conspiracy theories. These are facts. So it's time to turn the tables. It's time to go on the offensive. It's time to stop feeling like, oh no, what will they say? Oh no, what will they think about me? No, you be who you are, and you stand on the truth, and you make your case, and you trust in God, and you know that the truth is with you because that's where you got it from. And I'm telling you, history has proven in this country and other places, starting with the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, when people stood for the truth and believed and worked hard and did not compromise their values, they were supported with divine assistance. So Ya Allah, we ask you to reform all of our affairs. We ask you to fix our hearts and minds. We ask you to bring our hearts and minds together, that we may become a people who stand for the religion as you have called us, to carry this prophethood to the world. Ya Allah, we ask your forgiveness, we ask your mercy, we ask your guidance. We ask you to make us a people who are worthy of your contentment, worthy of the intercession of your beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we ask you to make us worthy of the eternal bliss in your presence after we leave this world. وصلى اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وأقم الصلاة.